All right, it's week 8 of our first season in our franchise here, and things have gone south very quickly. We are now 3-4 and losers of 4 straight games. So, yeah, that's not ideal. I'm actually trying to stall a little bit. I'm scrolling because I was thinking about this as we were getting ready to start, and I saw something earlier, Madden related, on Twitter, that apparently there's like some Madden issue, but I'm now not seeing it. It might have been yesterday. Hold on, Madden. Um, where did I see it? Now I don't know where I saw it. All right. So apparently there's been an issue with franchise. It says we're aware of an issue impacting some multi-user franchise leagues after advancing past week 1 and are actively investigating. We'll share updates in the thread below as we have them. This was posted on the 19th, which is this past Wednesday as I'm recording this. This is or whereas we're, for those of you who are live, realize we're live on the 22nd of August. And then there was an update the next day. We've deployed a temporary solution that should allow impacted multi-user franchise leagues to advance. As part of this solution, weekly recap will be temporarily disabled while we continue working toward the full fix. We're targeting to restore weekly recap before the NFL regular season kicks off. We appreciate your patience and will continue to share updates as work progresses. So, this weekly recap may not work if we click it. We've been clicking these and they seem to be kind of cool, but I saw like an infographic posted on Twitter about this, but I don't seem to see it now, and I think the only Madden account that I follow is this Madden Direct one. So anyway, so we may click on this weekly recap thing and it may tell us to go fly a kite. So I guess let's do that first and see if it works. We're gonna test this live. All right, Brandon, it's working.
Football weather is here. Hey, everybody, Scott Hansen here, and this is your EA Sports Weekly Recap for Week 7, presented by Lowe's. Plenty to get you caught up on. We begin in the Lone Star State. The Texans at home to take on the New York Giants.
This got ugly, guys.
And it's the Houston Texans defense that comes up with the big play here. This is a throw that Jaxson Dart will learn from. It's picked off, and it's taken back to the house. Touchdown. The Texans win their second straight as they get the victory here. From there, let's go to Music City.
That was pretty bad.
Nashville, Tennessee. Check in on the Titans as they host the Cleveland Browns. And this is Jerry Jeudy. He'll find an opening, and he's gone 20 yards on the touchdown. The Browns up their record to 5-2 as they get the victory here. Moving on, time for a look at the list no one wants to be on. It's the NFL
Broken tailbone.
The big news comes
That
from the
sounds
Atlanta Falcons
unpleasant.
and their hard-hitting, strong safety. He was removed from last week's game and was moving very gingerly due to an injury to his hip. He's likely looking at a fairly extended absence, but they're still hopeful they can get him back before the end of the season. Here now, the EA Sports Player of the Week for Week 7. Our nominee is this man, Sam Darnold. He was at his best in the win over the Chiefs, and he came through with 5 Count them, 5 touchdown passes on the day. Here now, a look at the rest of this week's top performers around the NFL.
Wow, the Titans had a good day, huh?
From there, why don't we give you a look at the league leaders in rushing through 7 weeks of play. This will be a list that will likely change as the season rolls along. There's a look at the rest of the scores from week number 7. The Bills, Chargers, Commanders, and Jags all on the bye. That'll do it for us. Until next week, Scott Hansen in Orlando. Good night from all of us at EA Sports.
All right, I was furiously scrolling through Twitter as that was going on to see if I could see the post that I saw this morning. But apparently that seems to be working. And maybe it's because I'm not a multi-user franchise or I'm an offline franchise. So maybe that's why that's working. But in any event, yeah, that was the recap for week 7. It was bad. We got annihilated by the Texans, and Jaxson Dart is not having himself a great season. He is now 4 touchdowns and 11 interceptions.
We have a deal. One of the top receivers has agreed to terms on a contract extension that will likely keep him and his quarterback very happy.
We were rudely interrupted there. So, yeah, 4 touchdowns and 11 interceptions on the year is not where you want to see your quarterback. How you doing, Myers? Record getting interesting? Interesting isn't the word I would use. So I don't know what to I don't really know what to do, because like quarterback play is clearly an issue. We're turning the ball over way too much, and Jaxson Dart right now is a big reason for that. So, you know, he's in his 2nd season. So my thought process is right now, you know, he's got he's got 2 years left on his rookie contract. Is that right? After this one? Yeah. So he's got 3 years left on his deal remaining. So after this year, he'll have another 2 years left. So part of me thinks that we go into next year with him as our starting quarterback, but then we seriously start to consider if we need to go elsewhere and go back into the draft to try and grab an actual franchise quarterback. Because then we've got, we'll have him going into his, if we draft a quarterback, then we have him going into his, last year of his deal, and we can just make him the backup and let him go if we draft someone who we think is going to be the guy. He's right now, I haven't checked the roster. I was thinking about this. So in Madden 25, I was doing the play, like the player development, in the sense of like, it'd be like, oh, you have a boost to this player. What do you want to boost them in or whatever? And I'm not doing that in this year's game. Because I like the ChatGPT was like, well, that's a coaching decision. And I was like, you're kind of right. We're not dealing with the actual training staff or whatever. So, I don't see the increases as we go. So what I'm thinking is that after every 4 weeks, I'm going to do a roster check, and maybe see who has improved, and then maybe we make some depth chart decisions or whatever. So I haven't decided if I'm going to include that in the YouTube videos for these. Maybe this will be the test case, because this is going to be the bye week. This will actually end up probably be a longer video, because We have the bye week and then week 9. So I don't think I'm just going to do a bye week video. I think we'll actually put the bye week and week 9 together. But we'll see. I guess it depends on how much talking I do. And we'll figure it out from there. So yeah, so we'll probably, we'll go through all of this stuff. And once we simulate, I think, into week 9 or advance into week 9, then maybe we'll kind of look at the roster. I'll check my spreadsheet, update it with anybody who has, their overall rating has increased. Because so right now, according to my list, and why am I going to my list when we can actually just go look? So he's actually a 78 now. I have him as a 77. And I mean, he can't possibly be getting a morale boost. Wait, he's now listed as like he's more of a scrambler than a field general. That's interesting. We don't see like the morale anywhere. It used to be you could like get that like it would tell you if you got like if someone was getting like a boost to their overall because of their like oh yeah it says 45%, so I don't know, I'm assuming that doesn't boost. Welcome in Taxi first by watching. You're busy, aren't you? You're supposed to be busy. So he's a 78 right now. There's a chance that by the end of the season he gets into the 80s, maybe, depending on. And the other thing is, so right now he's only star progression development trait. So, is that going to be good enough for what we want as our franchise quarterback? I don't know. If he was higher rated right now, maybe, but yeah. So I think right now the verdict is going to be out for a little while on whether we want to stay with Jaxson Dart long term or if we decide that, maybe we need to go back into the draft and find the next quarterback because this guy just isn't the answer. So that's something that we have to kind of consider as we go forward here. But essentially, right now where we stand at 3-4, we are last in the NFC East. It is very much looking like that we are not going to be a playoff team this year. And we're actually like at the trade deadline next week. It looks like week 9 is the trade deadline. So do we want to consider selling off any players? Like, I don't know. I mean, let's look at, looking at the roster just quickly. Do we have any players that are expiring contracts that we might be able to get something for that we maybe wouldn't think we might not re-sign? That, maybe like a contender would want? But I don't think we want to be sellers because I don't think we're looking to necessarily blow up our roster as more we're hoping that we can bolster it, and we're kind of in a rebuilding phase. Because I mean, really looking at it, none of our aging starters I think are in the final year of their deal. So I think we pretty much just stand pat at the trade deadline. That's kind of my thinking at the moment. Let's see. What else do we have to talk about? Oh, one other thing that I want to mention, and we've talked about this quite a bit over the last few weeks of our season, is the injury situation. When did Theo Johnson pop up on here? So apparently Maybe I didn't look before the end of stream the other day. He suffered a high ankle sprain at some point. So essentially now with this one, and I'm assuming because he wasn't an injury during the game in week 7, this is now the seventh player from week 3 till now that has popped up on the injury report after we advanced the week. So I started to kind of discuss this with ChatGPT as we're looking at coming up on after the 8th game of the season, how we're going to, it's our next, checkpoint to see if we want to adjust any of our settings or sliders. And it was basically just kind of a sanity or logic check, but I'm very much starting to think now that what we're seeing with these injuries that are popping up is that because we are currently set to the weekly training is set to auto, that when we advance the week, it is also doing the next week's weekly training. Because if you notice in the hub, we see this practice available, training complete. So, and this often doesn't seem to show up until after we do the weekly recap, or it doesn't seem to be immediately here. But so to me, what's happening is we're advancing the week. It's, delegating or simulating that training. And these guys are coming up injured. Now, the problem with that for me is that if that's the case and these guys are essentially getting hurt in practice, it's too many. There's way too many guys that are getting injured in practice and missing a game. Like, granted, they're only missing one game. They're not significant injuries, but while practice injuries happen in the NFL, I don't feel like you've got a team who every week is having a player or two get injured in practice to the point that they can't play. So to me, that's not realistic. So what we're probably going to do is after the week 9 game, which will be our 8th game of the season, when we go in and we kind of take a look at the settings and all of that to see if there's anything that we need to change. There might be some penalty stuff that probably still needs to be tweaked a little bit. One thing that we are going to change is we're going to change the weekly training. So if you go in here into, where is it? It's under user settings. No, league settings, team settings. Yes. So this weekly training is set to auto. We're going to change this to manual. I want to give it until we get to that next checkpoint, because I would like to try and keep the tweaking of things as consistent as possible. So we'll see how that works. My reasoning for wanting to do this is that if we have this set to manual, I think, and I don't know this for sure, but I think what happens is when you go into your hub here, your practice or training will show up as one of your things to do, and we can still probably simulate it or delegate it. But this way, we can check right after to see if these injuries start showing up. And if that's the case, then I think we've pinpointed that these are practice injuries that are happening, and then it's probably time to turn off practice injuries because it's just too many. There's no sliding scale. It's either an on-off. So I would rather turn off practice injuries than to have, a player a week or 2 players a week getting hurt in practices. The only other thing that I could possibly think of that's causing these injuries is that for some reason they're not injuries that happen during the game. Maybe they're not significant enough for a guy to come out of a game, but maybe he gets banged up or something like that, or the wear and tear. This is like the wear and tear system in play. And then after the game, they're diagnosed with like an injury and it shows up on the injury report. But I find that to be less likely than the practice injury scenario. So that's kind of where we're at and what I'm operating under with these injuries, because it's too many. It's too many. We're losing guys for a game every week to these injuries that we don't see happen during the game. So it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. So that's the planning there. Myers asks, are there any QBs that are looking to be traded? The injury thing is strange. Can you adjust training for Dart? So I don't want to be that hands-on with the training. And I did it in Madden 25, and I don't even know if this is the same thing, because if we go into what are the other settings in here, there was another setting in here. So if we look at league settings and then team settings, manage practice reps. So I don't know where it actually is. Dev trait management. But it used to be, we would come out of a game and it would go to that like locker room looking screen, and it would show all of our players that had like an increase that we could apply, and it would ask you where, like, what archetype you want to apply the upgrade to. And that doesn't seem to happen here. And I'm wondering if it's because I have the training set to auto, or if it's just something that they just changed the way that it works in this game. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. So we'll have to kind of play around with some things, I think, and figure that out. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm not particularly. I think the idea that I am the general manager, I think, is fine in that, let's say again, so let's look at Jaxson Dart for an example, since we were just talking about him. Morning, Sampit. How are you doing? So if we look at Jaxson Dart, so it's got the player archetypes here, and it's you for quarterbacks you have these options of scrambler, field general, strong arm, or improviser. And when you had a boost, or like, so a player had earned an increase, and I think it's like experience based, like you earn enough so much XP and you can boost a stat, you can boost one of these. You pick which archetype you want to give him a boost in, and then that determines what actual like attributes get a boost. So some people like to try and use that to strengthen certain things that maybe a player is weaker at. I usually would just like to have them focus on like their actual archetype that generally hopefully fits our scheme. But so now it seems like he's now considered a scrambling quarterback instead of a field general. So if we were to go, where would we see this? Yeah, so here he's listed as a scrambler, whereas I think he started as a field general. Um so anyway, long story short, in Madden 25, I was picking those, and essentially again, I was just going with, make them better at what they're already good at, or push them towards like their scheme, the scheme fit sort of thing. So yeah, so when it comes down to it, we just have to, oh my god, Tex. Um Sorry, still getting texts about softball. um, so yeah, so we're just gonna have to kind of make a determination on what we want to do at the quarterback position. Within the next. If I don't think we necessarily need to make that decision this season, because we've already kind of decided our scouting and we've kind of gone away from the route of scouting quarterbacks. We didn't consider scouting quarterbacks. Hold on. What's happening here? I said, I guess at what point does the coach try the backup? Well, that's the other thing is, so we have to play the role of the coach for the depth chart, because we could we could maybe, because I think if we go into the depth chart, we could do like an auto reorder. But the AI will not make a change on its own. So, and they won't even make a change mid-game, because we saw that, like, Dart had that game a few weeks ago where he threw 3 interceptions in the first half. And if we didn't intervene, he was going to just play the rest of the game. The computer will not make a substitution for a non-fatigue or injury related situation in this game. They just won't. So there's going to be times where I think, in the interest of trying to be realistic, that we have to kind of step in for certain things like that. The depth chart is going to be that main thing. So we are going to be controlling the depth chart, even though technically that is not something the general manager has the final say on. The general manager probably has input on that, but I don't think that's a coaching decision. So anyway, so yeah, so like Myers, I guess at one point is the coach try the back, yeah, because it's just not going to happen. So all right, so I think that's kind of enough discussion of that. So we're in our bye week. So we have this trade block. So apparently next week is the trade deadline. And we are certainly at 3 and 4 not going to be buyers. And I don't think we're necessarily going to be sellers. If we think about it, the only thing that we would maybe entice me to look at putting somebody on the trade block is we're missing 2 draft picks. So if we look at it and we look at this, I think it's we're a 4th and a 7th, if I remember correctly from when we looked at this at the beginning of the season. Myers, it sounds like even though you're playing GM, they want you to make coaching field decisions. Well, so what I am doing is not something in the game. Like, this is something that I am basically forcing into the game. When you play in the franchise now, you create or take over the role of a coach. But I am not doing the coaching decisions. I really hope that they will at some point put in a GM, set a GM mode or something in these games. I don't know if I expect that to ever happen, but I would like to see it happen. But we'll never know. I'm not optimistic about that. I would just love if you did, because it used to be that, years ago, you could play in the franchise as either a player where you would just control one player, a coach where basically you just, you were a coach and controlled the team, or an owner, which basically let you do everything that a coach could do, but you also had extra stuff that owners only had, which was essentially, stadium related stuff, the stuff that we saw when I was doing these these franchises a couple of years ago, you could set the ticket prices and the concession prices and all the merch prices and all that stuff, which I don't really care that much about. And you had to worry about like renovating the stadium and all that stuff. Sampit says, lurking for a bit. Good luck with the rest of the stream. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I would love if they added it so that you could just be the general manager, because I would like to still have the ability to be fired if you're not doing a good enough job over a certain period of time, but coaches get fired a lot quicker than GMs do. So if right now we have it set so that I can't get fired. Other coaches around the league can get fired, but I can't get fired because, if we lose the rest of our games, there would be a good chance that the Giants would probably fire me as the coach. And I'm not really making the coaching decisions because coaches generally have a shorter leash than GMs. It's just the way it is. Mostly because the coaches are hired by the GMs. But anyway, so I would love to see them put a dedicated GM, role in franchise. I think it's way past time for that to be a thing, but I don't know if it's even on their radar or something that they're considering. Anyway, we came in here to look at our draft picks. So yeah, so we have a first, second, third, fifth, and a sixth. So apparently the Giants traded their fourth and seventh round picks. So, we could conceivably, look at our roster and say, maybe we have somebody that we are not, they're an expiring contract and we're probably not going to re-sign them. So why don't we put them on the trade block and see if we can maybe get some draft picks to bolster our pool of picks? I don't hate the idea. Just on looking at my roster, we're looking really quickly, and I'm looking through the list of expiring contracts, and we can actually do it this way here, probably. Yeah, we can sort by expiring contracts. And this is going to give us this is a reverse overall. So let's go this way because we obviously want to see who are our players, our best players that are expiring deals. So we've got Newsome here. I don't think we would want to trade Newsome. He's still young. He's an 80 overall. He's our best corner at the moment. So I don't think we would want to trade Greg Newsome. Kayvon Thibodeau now has 5 years left on. Oh no, I'm sorry. He was originally signed a 5-year contract. He is in his last year of his deal, and he is our backup right edge. He's only 25 though, whereas Brian Burns is 28. I could make the argument that maybe we look to trade Kayvon Thibodeau. I know this came up during the first stream of the franchise when we were setting things up, that apparently the Giants are actually actively shopping Kayvon Thibodeau. So maybe he's a player we could look to get a return on. We've got Burns locked up for 2 more seasons after this one. So this, to me, maybe we do put Kayvon Thibodeau on the trade block and see what we get for offers next week. Because I think that's probably still how it works, is after you advance the week, you potentially get offers for a player that you placed in the trade block. So that's a potential. Jerome Baker, we essentially signed him to be a backup. And I think we guaranteed his full contract. I think. Yeah. So if we trade him, we do take a cap penalty. So I think but it's just for one season. All right, hold on. I gotta figure out how this actually works. Madden NFL 27. How do cap penalties work? So in Madden franchise mode, cap penalties or dead cap occur when you cut or trade a player before their contract ends while they still have remaining unamortized signing bonus money. Because signing bonuses are spread out across the length of a contract for cap purposes but paid instantly, releasing or trading the player accelerates all remaining bonus money onto your salary cap. So this is apparently what he's still owed in bonuses, this 14.8 million. If I trade a player next year, his contract, that penalty will remain there for that season. Correct. Doesn't affect next year. I think this is how this works. Contract ends at the conclusion of the season. There's no remaining signing bonus. All right. All right. So if we were to trade Thibodeau, we would still be on the hook for his cap hit just for this year. So I think that's fine. It's why you want to be careful trading players who have multiple years left on their deal or cutting players who have multiple years left on the deal, because then that cap penalty is, it's applied to you for the remaining length of that contract. So it wouldn't be a salary dump. We would be looking to try and get a player back. So Javon Baker, we could potentially look to trade him to. We would take a little bit of that cap penalty there because we did fully guarantee his contract for the year. Graham Glasgow, I think, is another one that we could look at possibly. Maybe Shelby Harris. Shelby Harris, I don't think is going to have a very big trade market because he's 35. But, if there's a team that really needs a defensive tackle that wants to try and contend this year. All right. So I think what we'll do is we'll put a few players on the trade block because if we look at it, so if we look at our roster, so Thibodeau right now is our backup right edge. We could always, pick up a free agent to fill that spot. Baker is our backup Sam linebacker. Same thing. If we do trade him, we could look to pick up just a cheap player to fill that role. Glasgow is technically our starting center. So we would be, but he's 34. I don't he's not our long-term center, and we're talking about oh my god. Um he's not our long-term center. And if we trade him and John Michael Schmitz Jr. has to become the starting center for the rest of this year. I mean, because we are heavily scouting interior offensive linemen and we saw that there were 4 centers in the mock draft, the first mock draft that were projected to go in the first round. So, um, we there's a good chance that we're going that direction, depending on the results of our scouting. And then I think maybe we look at putting Juju Smith-Schuster on the block. Again, do I think he's going to elicit a lot of interest? No. But he's a non-factor for us right now. He's the 5th wide receiver on our depth chart. So if we get an offer for him, even if we were to get like a 7th round pick that'll replace the 7th round pick that we don't have, we might even look next week to manually make a trade, maybe send him off, see if we can get a 7th round pick. Maybe we get a 6th. Who knows? So I think that's the plan. So let's go into this here. I actually want to see what happens here. So they're actually giving me some suggestions of adding to the trade block. Jerome Baker, Graham Glasgow, who we talked about, Jameis Winston. We're not putting Jameis Winston on the trade block. I don't think anybody's going to be banging down our door for Jameis Winston. Jax is redeemed for a treat for Steve. But we did specifically talk about these 2 guys. So I think we're gonna go ahead and do that. Steve didn't even hear that. There we go. Come on over. No, you gotta come where they can see you. There we go. That's a little better. There you go, buddy. All right, so we're gonna add Baker to the trade block. And it only gives me the option of doing 1. That's cute. If I go here, this is going to show me who's on the trade block, right? So here you go. Here are the quarterbacks on the trade. Oh, we could get Joe Milton, guys. Yeah, here are the quarterbacks on the trade block. All right, so let's go into our roster. Oh, again, if we go into the salaries here and we sort by remaining. Add to trade block. So we're gonna put Graham Glasgow on the trade block. And then we'll do Shelby Harris. And then we'll do Juju Smith-Schuster. All right. So those are the 4 players that we have put on the trade block. Will they show up? Like, do I actually see my players that I added? No. Yeah, I can't even look at my team, which makes sense. You can't trade with yourself. All right, so we've done that. We've put 4 players on the trade block. So now we have to do our national focus scouting. So at week 8, you set your national scouts position focus, and we had said that we are going to be doing interior offensive line. So there we go. We have set interior offensive line as our national scouts focus. And then do we want to look at, I'm not going to focus on the scouting right now and looking at prospects at the moment. We'll worry about that as we get later into the season. But yeah, so essentially I think that's all that we have to do for our bye week. I want to start looking at this news thing a little bit more. I don't know if what is this? Okay. So breaking news. So Chris Olave has re-signed, has signed an extension with the Falcons. It looks like the Saints traded for Chris Lidstrom and then extended his contract. And Buda Baker has signed an extension with the Cardinals. Stephon Diggs is on the Falcons, huh? Game recaps. Picked apart. Yeah. League preview. Anything related to us here? Probably not, because we do have a bye. Player stats, injuries, transactions. I'm wondering where things show up for like stories that stories regarding draft the upcoming draft picks. I'm guessing they'll show up in this news area here. Day sheets, league. Yeah. So we'll try and keep an eye on this a little bit more and go through the news and see if there's anything that we need to be aware of as far as the players coming up in the draft. Because we're at the point where we probably have to start worrying about that. So all right, so we're going to advance the week. Should I trying to think. You know what? We'll hold off on that and we'll advance the week in the before we get to the week 9 video. So there you go. But there we go. There it is. There's our bye week. So we put a few players in the trade block. We kind of took a look at the team and let's see we'll see where we're at next week.